Welcome back to my chamber. Tonight, these two gentlemen, I use the term loosely, will be debating who built the pyramids. On the left, the catastrophist. He read a book. He found it very compelling. He has since read nothing that disagrees with it, partly by design. He believes that a technologically advanced civilization, one predating all recorded history by several thousand years, was destroyed by a comet approximately 12,900 years ago, and that the pyramids are their legacy. He does not consider this a conspiracy theory. He simply claims that he has a framework. On the right, the enthusiast. He has gone further. He believes the same advanced civilization was not of this planet. He has a diagram. The diagram has arrows. Several of the arrows connect to other arrows. He considers this his methodology. And I am Hemiunu, Vizier of Khufu, nephew to the pharaoh, chief of all the king's works, architect. I designed and oversaw the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Every stone, every grade, every gang of workers, the logistics, the quarrying, the transport, the placement. Every half-day's work is documented in my own administrative records, which currently sit in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Having spent the preceding 4,500 years in a sealed chamber at Wadi el-Jaf, because nobody thought to look there. Nobody asked me at the time. Nobody ever asks me these days. Let's get this over with.
The fundamental question isn't who built the pyramids. The fundamental question is how. Mainstream archaeology's answer, ramps, sledges, human labor, simply does not account for the precision. The tolerances on the Great Pyramid are finer than modern construction standards, fractions of a degree. 0.1% error across 230 meters of base.
Correct, because...
Which points to a pre-existing body of mathematical and engineering knowledge considerably in advance of what we attribute to 2560 BCE.
Correct, because...
Meaning a lost civilization, pre-Younger Dryas. We are looking at inherited technology. We are looking at inherited...
Yes, inherited, absolutely,
From a human civilization that predates the impact event. The evidence is overwhelming. The Sphinx enclosure water erosion, the alignments, the mathematical encoding.
From an extraterrestrial civilization that made contact with early humanity and gifted them the knowledge required.
That's not what I...
The ancient astronaut theorists are very clear on this.
I'm not an ancient astronaut theorist.
You're almost there, though. You're right at the edge. You just need to take the final step.
I have a framework.
I have a ceiling.
Take the ramp theory. The standard explanation is that ramps were used to haul blocks into place. But a ramp long enough to reach the apex of the Great Pyramid, steep enough to be useful, shallow enough to pull stones up, would require more material than the pyramid itself. You'd be building 2 pyramids to build 1 pyramid. It's circular.
There is an internal spiral ramp.
That's certainly one interesting theory, I suppose.
It's my ramp. I built it. It spirals around the interior of the structure, allowing the upper courses to be set from the inside. The evidence includes a significant anomaly detected by muon tomography in 2017 and a narrow shaft consistent with ramp usage identified in the northeastern corner. I would have explained this at any point in the last 4,000 years. Nobody asked.
That's actually consistent with my framework.
I am truly delighted to hear that.
The precision remains unexplained. The base is level to within 2.1 centimeters across 230 meters. The orientation to true north is accurate to within 3/60ths of a degree. You cannot achieve that without instruments of considerable sophistication. Instruments we have found no evidence of.
You find what you look for.
Meaning? Could you elaborate on that point?
The level was achieved by flooding the foundation platform and cutting to the waterline. Water finds its own level. I know I'm going to regret saying that.
That's what we keep telling you. Water finds its own level. The earth is flat.
Please, we are having a serious discussion here. We have no time for your crazy conspiracies.
Yes! F off Derek. Go and find your own conspiracy, you fudding flat tard.
4,500 years. I have been waiting 4,500 years to be asked a question, and it has come to this. Allow me to continue. This requires a channel, a water source, and a chisel. We had all three. The north orientation was achieved by bisecting the arc of a circumpolar star and splitting the angle. Merket and Bay, a straight rod and a forked stick. The instruments are simple. The mathematics behind them is not. This is the distinction that your framework appears unable to make.
But who taught them the mathematics?
Generations of mathematicians, who taught their students, who in turn taught their students, and so on. Over approximately 3,000 years of continuous recorded mathematical development, traceable from the earliest administrative records of the First Dynasty through the Rhind Mathematical Papyrus, which I would encourage you both to read before your next television appearance.
But the Rhind Papyrus is from
1550 BCE, yes, which is 1,000 years after my project was completed. I am describing the body of knowledge that preceded it, the tradition. Are you familiar with the concept of a tradition?
the alignment. The three pyramids at Giza correspond precisely to the three stars of Orion's belt. The angle, the offset, the Nile mirrors the Milky Way. This is a star map. This is a message.
The Orion correlation is actually one of the stronger pieces of evidence for...
The Orion correlation has a directionality problem.
The what?
The three pyramids are on the west bank of the Nile. Orion's belt, as mapped by the correlation, points north. For the map to work, you must flip Orion's belt horizontally. The correlation only exists if you mirror the image. Orion rises in the east, crosses the meridian, and sets in the west. If you hold the map above your head and face south, as ancient Egyptians did when tracking the sky, it aligns. You are matching sky to ground by looking up, which is a reasonable thing to do when navigating by stars. It is not a message, it is orienteering.
The message is in the orienteering.
There is a first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club.
Right. And?
The first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is that you don't know you're a member.
Absolutely, yes.
4,500 years.
The core problem remains documentation. There is no surviving written record of how the pyramid was built. No instructions, no project plan, nothing.
There is a daily logistics diary kept by a mid-level official named Merer. It records, in half-day increments, the movement of Tura limestone. It records the movement of Tura limestone from the quarry to the construction site at Giza. It covers working schedules, ration distributions, and travel routes. It was discovered in 2013 at the port of Wadi El Jarf. It is currently in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It is, as of this moment, the oldest written document currently known to exist on Earth. It is 4,586 years old. It is a middle manager's expense report. It has been there in a sealed chamber on the Red Sea coast for the entirety of your debate.
I'm aware of the Merer Papyrus.
Are you? I suggest you look closer.
It's consistent with a later organizational phase. It doesn't explain the construction methodology for the upper.
Yes, it documents the limestone transport phase specifically. The fine white Tura casing stone, the outer skin, the finishing. The core structure was already standing. Merer was logging the delivery of the layer that made it shine. The pyramid that blinded you in the sun. That pyramid. He was doing the paperwork for that. Which is one component of a project that also has, I will say this slowly, quarry tool marks on the walls at Tura and dolerite pounding balls at Giza. Worker village excavations, gang graffiti on the interior stone, and my own administrative records naming every senior official in the chain of command, and a wall painting at Deir el-Bersha showing exactly how we moved heavy objects, complete with the water pouring technique for friction reduction needed to be illustrated for posterity.
The wall painting is from 1880 BCE.
Yes. 700 years after the pyramid was completed. The Egyptians were still doing it. Because it works. Because it is not a mystery. Because pouring water on sand to reduce friction is the kind of thing you discover when you try to drag something heavy across sand, which we did regularly for several thousand years. What else have you got?
Advanced machining, the sarcophagi, the drill holes, the hollow core drill marks in granite show a feed rate of 2.5 millimeters per revolution, far in excess of anything modern diamond-tipped drills achieve without significant pressure. The technology doesn't exist.
The dolerite balls are still at the site.
Dolerite balls don't explain.
Dolerite is harder than granite. If you apply a dolerite ball to a granite surface with pressure and movement, repeatedly, over time, the granite becomes smooth. This is not a theory. You can test it. You have hands. You can walk up and touch them yourself. The feed rate calculation you are citing comes from a 1983 paper by Christopher Dunn. It has been contested by multiple experimental archaeologists who replicated the drill marks using copper tube, abrasive sand slurry, and a weighted bow drill. The replication matched the original marks within acceptable tolerance. The technology required is a tube, some sand, a stick, and patience. We had a great deal of patience.
The helicopter hieroglyphs at Abydos
Are two overlapping inscriptions. An original carving was plastered and recarved. The plaster eroded. Two different texts merged optically into what appears at a certain angle and with a certain disposition to resemble modern vehicles. The relevant texts are royal epithets: he who repulses the 9 enemies of Egypt, and he who protects Egypt and overthrows the foreign countries. Epigraphers identified this in the 1990s. The word for this is palimpsest. It is a known phenomenon in any tradition that carves text into physical surfaces and then changes its mind.
It really does look like a helicopter.
It looks like two things written on top of each other. I imagine that is also what an alien probe of your brain would find. Two things, neither of them this.
The labor question. 100,000 workers. Herodotus. The logistics are impossible.
You cannot feed, house, and coordinate that many people on the technology available in 2560 BCE.
I didn't use 100,000 workers. Herodotus wrote about the pyramids 2,000 years after I built them, in a language that was not Egyptian, based on local oral tradition and the interpretations of temple priests, who were themselves working from records they partially understood. His figure is a tourist's estimate. The actual workforce, based on the excavated village at Giza, the ration records, and the physical capacity of the work site, was between 20 and 30,000, rotating in phases.
And you housed and fed them how?
In the workers' village, which has been excavated, it contains bakeries, breweries, a medical facility, and evidence of regular delivery of cattle, goats, and fish from across Egypt. The workers were not slaves. They were specialists on rotation from across the country, fulfilling a labor obligation, and they were compensated in food, accommodation, and medical care, and on the available evidence, occasional beer. Their gang names survive. One of the gangs was called the Drunkards of Menkaure. They built the third pyramid. They apparently celebrated in their own way.
The Drunkards of Menkaure is a real gang name?
It is in the administrative record, as is Friends of Khufu, as is my own name, listed as an administrative superior. The builders left their names inside the building. The building has signatures. They have been there for 4,500 years. Nobody reads the signatures.
The Drunkards of Menkaure.
Correct.
They were real people.
They were extremely real people. They had a name they chose for themselves. They built a pyramid. One assumes they then drank.
This is all consistent with an alien-assisted workforce, though?
The fucking tools are still there. The building has signatures. They have been there for 4,500 years. But sadly, nobody reads the signatures. There is one thing. The pyramid's height, multiplied by 43,200, approximates the polar radius of the Earth. The perimeter divided by twice the height gives you pi to 4 decimal places. The geographic coordinates of the Great Pyramid, 29.9792458 degrees north, match the speed of light in meters per second to the first 9 digits. I am not going to tell you that was accidental. I'm not going to tell you what it means. I will tell you that the people who built it were doing mathematics that most of the people in this room cannot replicate. And that the genuinely interesting question, the one worth asking, is not who built it. That question has an answer. The answer is in the museum. The interesting question is why a civilization of that mathematical sophistication chose to encode those constants in stone. Why they wanted something permanent enough to carry that information forward. What they were afraid of losing. That question does not have an answer yet. I'm not even sure it has a question yet, but it's the one I'd be asking if anyone were asking me.
The Drunkards of Menkaure.
Do you think they had a flag?
The Merer Papyrus is real. It is currently in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It is the oldest written document currently known to exist. It is, quite simply, a logistics diary. The Drunkards of Menkaure are real. Their name is in the administrative record. They built the third pyramid. The dolerite balls are still at Giza. The tool marks are still at Tura. The sledge painting is still at Deir el-Bersha. Nobody tidied up. The mathematical constants encoded in the pyramid's dimensions remain a subject of genuine scholarly discussion. The helicopter hieroglyphs at Abydos are 2 overlapping royal epithets. They have been known as such since the 1990s. Whether the Drunkards of Menkaure had a flag remains unexplained.